So my first impressions of the new OneD&D playtest were wrong. I'm Brad Wolf, and welcome to Dire Den. So we're back today reviewing the D&D playtest, the 5.5 playtest. That's it. I've decided to call it 5.5 because that's what it is, and that's what we should have been calling it all along. They don't want us to call it OneD&D, but I think it's silly to keep going back and forth between 5th edition 2014 and 5th edition 2024. It's 5.5. Let's move on. One thing that's good about these playtests is Wizards of the Coast doesn't release the packet and the survey on the same day. You have to take some time with the playtest packet before you can complete the survey. What's good about that is my opinion now is not the same as my first impression. And no, that doesn't invalidate what I said in my last video. I still don't like the weapon mastery properties. What I realize after another day of looking at this is that Topple and Cleave are very situational, and I don't think they're going to come up as often as you would like them to. And Push is pretty situational too. So this makes me think that Nick and Vex and Graze are the three weapon mastery feats that we would end up seeing all the time. If they were to implement the weapon mastery properties as is, we would end up with those three being the most commonly used and the rest kind of being ignored. My first impression of the Barbarian was good. My first impression of the Fighter was meh. My first impression of the Sorcerer was cool. And my first impression of the Wizard was, I think it's broken. And with the exception of the Wizard, my opinion on all of those have changed. So today we're focused on the Barbarian and the Fighter, so let's do this. I'm going to say very satisfied with the new Rage, as it only lasts a turn unless you extend it by making an attack roll, forcing the enemy to make a saving throw, or taking your bonus action to extend the Rage. And then, if you keep doing those things, your Rage can last up to 10 minutes. That gives you much better use of your Rage. What I like about this, it doesn't require the Dungeon Master to police when the Rage is going to end. Instead, it puts the emphasis on the player to be responsible for extending their own Rage. So again, very satisfied with the new Rage. Unarmored Defense is the next thing on the list, and it's essentially unchanged. I'm going to say satisfied. The next first level ability is Weapon Mastery. So you can do some of the things the Fighter can do with the new weapon properties. However, you're limited to melee weapons and thrown weapons, which is fine by me because I don't think your Barbarian needs to be shooting a bow. My question is, Vex and Graze don't seem to be as good for the Barbarian as they are for the Fighter, because you can give yourself advantage as a Barbarian through reckless attack, so you don't need Vex that much. And if you're rolling with advantage all the time, how often do you need Graze? This brings us back to the other weapon mastery features that are largely situational for the Barbarian to use. Overall, I just don't like the weapon mastery features. I've said that way too much by now. I'm going to put dissatisfied because I just don't like weapon mastery. At second level, the new Barbarian gets Primal Knowledge, which gives you an extra skill of your choice. And while your Rage is active, you can channel Primal Power when you attempt certain tasks. This lets you use a strength check for acrobatics, intimidation, perception, stealth, and survival. This is actually a good way to give the Barbarian more versatility. However, we already have a rule in 5e that lets you use a different attribute score with a particular skill check. So technically you could already do this, but it spells it out specifically for the Barbarian. It lets you use strength for things that you probably wouldn't use strength for before. Overall, I think this is a good ability. I just don't really get the theme that we're going for here. Am I so angry that I'm really concentrating on being quiet? Am I so angry that I'm perceiving my surroundings better? I think it just needs a better name or to be better worded, but I'm not going to give it a dissatisfied on that. But in the comments, I will say that maybe Animal Instinct or some better name would be good. So the next thing the Barbarian gets is their subclass feature. And the subclass that is presented here in the playtest is the Berserker subclass. And I'm just going to say right now, the Berserker is much improved all the way across the board. I think I'm giving very satisfied to all of the Berserker abilities. So the first ability the Berserker gets is Frenzy, which is a huge improvement over the old Frenzy because it no longer gives exhaustion. So the old Frenzy would give you a level of exhaustion every time you used it, which essentially made nobody want to use it because nobody wanted to take those exhaustion penalties. The new Frenzy gives you a number of d6s equal to your rage damage bonus. So if you're raging and you use your reckless attack, that's 2d6 plus 2 extra damage at 3rd level when you get this ability. Then at 8th level, that goes up to 3d6 plus 3, and at 16th level, that's 4d6 plus 4. So that's just straight up extra damage when you hit with your reckless attack. Much better than the old version. So at 5th level, the Barbarian still gets extra attack and fast movement. These are essentially identical to the original Barbarian. Because they were good before, they're just not fixing what's not broken. At 6th level, the Barbarian gets the subclass feature, and the subclass we have in the playtest again is the Berserker. Here, the Barbarian is getting Mindless Rage. This is essentially the same as it was before. They just cleaned up the wording. I'm giving this one a very satisfied. It was a solid feature before, and it's still solid. Next, we come to level 7, which is Feral Instinct. Your instincts are so honed that you have advantage on initiative rolls and dexterity saving throws. What's not to like about this? I'm giving this one a very satisfied. The old Barbarian already had this ability and they had Danger Sense, but they got them as 2 different abilities. So here you're getting 2 for the price of 1. Again, what's not to like? I'm going to stop here with the Barbarian so I have time in this video to deal with the Fighter. Because everything for the Barbarian beyond 7th level, I am giving dissatisfied to. I think the first half of this Barbarian is great. Once you get beyond 8th level, it's just uninteresting. I don't think it really improves on what you've already reached up until 7th level. So as it stands now, that's going to make it very attractive to multi-class and only take 7 levels of Barbarian and then start taking levels of another class. I don't think that's good design. Every class should be designed well enough to make you want to take 20 levels of it. The 2014 5th edition already had that problem with Warlock, so don't do that to the Barbarian with 5.5. As far as the Berserker subclass, I'm giving very satisfied to all of it. It is way better than the original Berserker subclass, and it does seem to be on par with the other Barbarian subclasses we have from Tasha's. To sum up Barbarian, I like the first 7 levels, and I like the Berserker subclass, but everything else, not so much. So that brings us to the Fighter. My first impression of it was very mediocre. However, the more I look at the different abilities, they are definitely overall better, and I do believe Jeremy Crawford was right when he said that this new Fighter was going to do a lot more damage. So let's break it down and take a look at the Fighter's class features. At first level, the Fighter gets Fighting Style and it gets Second Wind, 2 abilities that it already had. The other first level ability, of course, is Weapon Master, which you know I'm not a fan of. Action Surge has had some restrictions to it, which at first I thought was unneeded because most of my players don't use multi-class. After thinking about Action Surge and being aware that it can be used for spell casting hijinks, I understand why they added the new restriction, and I'm not hurt by it. Next, we have the Fighter subclass, which introduces the Champion. And I'll give my final thoughts on the Champion in a minute. So at 4th level, you get a feat just like every other class. And 5th level, you get extra attack just like the Fighter got before. However, you now get another feat at 5th level. So you're getting 2 feats at back-to-back levels at 4th and 5th at the same time you're getting your extra attacks. What's good about this? If you have a specific build in mind based on feats, you can get both of them when you reach 5th level and really feel like you've achieved the character build you want. So if you want to take both tough and durable to make your character a better tank, you can get both of those by the time you're 5th level. Or if you want Tavern Brawler and Grappler, or Alert and Lucky, whatever your ideal feat combo is, so by 5th level you can really feel like you've achieved your character concept. Then at 6th level you get another subclass feature, followed by your Weapon Expert ability, which continues to improve your weapon mastery. This lets you swap out the mastery property of your weapon. Therefore, if you have a magic sword, you can give that magic sword the property that you want to use most often. This comes at an appropriate level because by now you should have magic items that you're going to be relying on for the rest of your campaign. At 8th level, you get a feat. Of course, there's nothing new there. At 9th level, you have a new Indomitable ability. If you fail a saving throw, you can re-roll it with a bonus equal to your fighter level. That's a considerable improvement over the 2014 fighter. At 10th level, of course, is your subclass feature. At 11th level, you get extra attacks just like you did with the 2014 fighter. And at 12th level, you get a feat like every other class. And this is why my initial reaction was that this fighter seems pretty similar to the original fighter. And this is why I was initially unimpressed, because this fighter doesn't seem to be that big of an improvement over the 2014 fighter. And they really seem to be relying on that extra 5th level feat to spice up your fighter. But then when I got to the subclasses, things started to make a little more sense. So let's get through 13th and 14th level and we'll see where I'm going. 13th level further expands your Weapon Expert feature with an ability called Weapon Adept. And it's at this point I just want to say, why are we going from Weapon Master to Weapon Expert to Weapon Adept? Those names don't track. Feels like you're getting worse, not better. You start off as a master, and then you become an expert, and then you become an adept. Seems backwards to me. This 13th level Weapon Adept ability allows you to add 2 of the mastery properties to one weapon. So if you have a magic longsword, you could give it flex so that you're doing D10 damage instead of D8 and still able to use a shield, and also give it the graze ability so you can still do damage even when you miss. I'm sure if these weapon mastery properties make it into the 5.5 version of the game, people will devise interesting combinations to take at this 13th level. Then we get to 14th level, subclass feature, 15th level, improved action surge, which is where we see you being able to use your action surge twice before a rest, but no more than once per turn. At 14th level, you get your last subclass feature, and this is when we realize that you now get all of your subclass abilities by the time you reach 14th level. Before, your fighter subclass abilities came at 7th, 10th, 15th, and 18th level. Therefore, you had to get to 18th level to have all your subclass abilities. Now you're getting all your subclass abilities by the time you reach 14th level. This creates some interesting milestones for your character. By 5th level, you're going to have 3 feats, including the one you get from your background. By 8th level, you're going to have 4 feats, and by 12th level, you're going to have 5 feats. And by 14th level, you're going to have all of your subclass features. And this is where I see the real power of this new fighter come online, because you can use these for your ability score improvement. You'll be able to hit a 20 strength just as fast as you could before, but now you're going to have additional feats to go with it. When it comes to subclasses, they are intended to create a theme for your character. It's much better to get those thematic abilities sooner rather than later, so you really feel like you've become that character you had in mind when you started your campaign. Now that brings us to 15th level, where you get improved action surge, 16th level where you get another feat, And then 17th level where you get the Unconquerable ability. This lets you use your second wind to use your 9th level Indomitable ability. This will make fighters very hard to kill because at 17th level, they'll be able to use their second wind, they'll be able to use their Indomitable ability, and then they'll be able to use both of them at the same time once that Indomitable ability is used up. That's really going to help with your tank builds, especially when it comes to the champion's 14th level Survivor ability, which allows you to do two things. Defy death, you have advantage on death saving throws. Moreover, when you roll an 18 to 20 on a death save, you gain the benefit of rolling a 20. So essentially, this fighter is just never going to die when you stack this on top of the Indomitable and Unconquerable abilities. But we're not done. There's the Heroic Rally ability. At the start of each of your turns, you regain hit points equal to 5 plus your Constitution modifier if you have no more than half your hit points left. You don't gain this benefit if you have 0 hit points. So the Heroic Rally doesn't prevent you from taking death saving throws. You're still going to have to make your death saves. But as soon as you're stabilized, you're going to get right back up. At 18th level, you get the last of your extra attacks, so now you're making 4 attacks per action, and 8 attacks if you're taking an action surge. Now, the previous fighter got this at 20th level, and that was their capstone ability, but we're only at 18. At 19th level, you're getting another feat, so if you don't already have a 20 constitution in addition to your 20 strength, you do now, or you've got so many feat options, you should have a decent amount of versatility by now, which was the biggest criticism of the previous fighter, that they didn't have enough versatility. Then, of course, at 20th level, you get your epic boon to stack on top of all those other feats. So while at first glance, this fighter did not excite me, once I actually took the time to understand that they were leaning hard into the feats and that your fighter is really going to be the character to take if you want to customize your combat abilities with multiple feats. So as far as my survey, I'm going to give satisfied responses for everything here in the fighter, with the exception of weapon mastery, weapon expert, and weapon adept. Because, and this will be the last time I say it, I don't like the weapon mastery property design. So let's quickly go over the champion subclass, and I will simply say this. It is definitely better than the previous champion subclass. However, I do not think it's better than some of the subclasses in Xanathar's and Tasha's. In fact, I still to this day think the Fighter Battle Master is the best subclass for Fighter. Unfortunately, it appears like we're doing away with it unless a lot of people tell them otherwise on their surveys. So please do that. You don't have to hate the weapon mastery properties. If you like those, great. But I don't want to lose the Battle Master fighter. But overall, on my survey, I'm going to say satisfied with each of the champion subclass features. I think they're all good, and they are an improvement over the previous champion. So there you have it. I don't hate the new 5.5 fighter. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. Tell you what I do love. I love the response I'm getting to this channel. I'm super excited to keep going with this. By the time this video goes public, we're going to be at like 300 subscribers. That's awesome. I honestly thought it was going to take at least 6 months to reach the level we already reached in 2 months. Thanks again for watching. I'm Brad Wolf, and this has been Dire Den, and you guys are awesome.